Hi, welcome to the Andrew Buckle book review of 50 People Who Buggered Up Britain. Obviously, Maggie Thatcher's on there, Diana, also Janet Street Porter, and a few others. And there's Tony Blair and Gordon Brown on the back. Now, this book came out in 2009, so it's slightly out of date. Quite often when you're reading some of the things, you think, hang on, why are they not mentioning certain things? Because there's certain characters in here who have gone even further down that route of buggering up Britain. However, this is from Constable, and you can see the details, littlebrown.co.uk. Now, I picked this up in the charity shop. I always love picking up these sort of books in charity shop. And there's about 275 pages, 55, I think, sections in this. And I loved it. Even if I might not agree with every single comment, some of the things I'm got thinking, well, maybe not. That's an interpretation. But it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I loved all like Susie Leather. Many people I've never heard of. Some, Alan Titchmarsh. I think certainly he's on that list sometimes. I mean, I like Alan Titchmarsh. Jeffrey Archer. Poor old Jeffrey Archer. Also, Kenneth Baker. Some of these, of course, are characters from quite a while ago. Some people might turn around and say, Kenneth Baker? Who? Now, of course, he was a politician, cabinet minister, and says here, charming, etc. And there was he had certainly a character. Peter Bazalgette. Now, some people you might not even know. Bazalgette, of course, all the sewers and things, but obviously this is not the same person, but obviously related. And it's talking about all the programmes like Big Brother. So that's quite fascinating. John Burt, of course, TV as well. It says John Burt. It's quite fascinating. Royds Bosun. Now, that's a character that I haven't seen. I assume he's dead now. I don't know. I must admit. That's another thing when you're reading things, you think, is that person dead? I haven't seen them recently. I assume that's the case. David Blunkett, I know he's not. Quite certain. He still turns up quite regularly. And the thing that's quite fascinating, quite a few of the comments in here, I think, very true. Some of those decisions maybe were a bit, but still, it's interesting. Certainly, again, you can agree or disagree with the comments. Richard Brunston. Now, I've never heard of this person before. Paul Burrell. Paul Burrell, of course, of Diana, and great picture of him. Yeah, James Callaghan, again, another, obviously the PM from about 1976. Fascinating, I must admit, it's talking about here because of the introduction of decimalisation. All the coins obviously changed from the old coins to the new. Personally, I actually quite like the new coins, but again, other people like. I wouldn't be surprised now, of course, with certain thing that I'm not going to mention in this one, is that they want to go back to the sort of old coins. Why not? But, how complicated would that be to go back again, do that? But then some people... But anyway, Alistair Campbell. Because, of course, there's people that want to go back to the old measurements. I'm quite happy with kilograms, kilometres, doesn't worry me. But then, of course, there's some things that are still in the old currency anyway. You've got like miles and not kilometres. Maybe they're supposed to. However, I suppose on the roads, maybe it is in kilometres, miles. I don't drive, so I have no idea. However, Richard Dawkins and Charles Simonyi. Richard Dawkins I do know of. Diana, of course, and it's just fascinating. It is fascinating. Again, you can read these, just brings back a lot of memories about certain people, and you think, oh, I never realised that. Oh, I never thought about that. And that's a way of looking at it. Greg Dyke. Alex Ferguson. Alex Ferguson. I'm not a Manchester United fan, so that's that, yes, I can well imagine, like I said, it talks about the hairdryer treatment, and God, that would be awful. I've had bosses like that as well, where they scream in your face and you think, not really. It doesn't really, for me, do anything. Basically, it puts my back up, and that's sort of like thinking, wonder where our next job will be going to, because frankly, that's the only treatment you get when people start screaming at you for something like that. That is, to me, is not a good boss. But each their own on that opinion. I'm certain people will disagree with me on that. And this one, Ronald Jasper, as I'm not, don't go to church, other than occasional singing carols and those sort of things. It's fascinating. I didn't realise a lot of this. So a lot of this has sort of gone on without my knowledge completely. All the changes, all the various... Now, I've probably heard it on the radio, on TV, and probably just it sort of passed over. I think, not really interested. And Graham Kendrick, another sort of character that I don't know much about. Denny Ladston. Oh, it's all about architecture. Oh, London National Theatre. Susie Leather. Quite fascinating. Lots of characters. Like I say, Rupert Murdoch, obviously very well known. John Prescott, good old John Prescott. I actually saw John Prescott one time. Obviously, I didn't go up to. I've never. You see quite often see politicians, and I've seen Jacob Rees-Mogg, all those sort of people. And you walk past him, and you think, oh, that's X, Y, Z. And I saw John Prescott. He was up in Hull because, of course, that's where he is from, Hull. And he was just coming out of the shop, and I thought, oh, that's John Prescott. I have no real particular great opinion or not with John Prescott. Always came across okay for me, but it's just interesting reading the comments about what he did and didn't do, and it's fascinating. Jimmy Savile, I know that's what I was getting from. Now this does not mention at all anything. And that's when I first read it, I thought that's very strange. So you read it and you think there's no mention of anything that obviously what happened later. And it's mainly criticising his crazed insistence on youthfulness, except the dignity of old age, etc., driving around in a Rolls Royce with HIS1. John Scarlett, of course, MI6, yes, MI6. Julia Smith, BBC, Janet Street Porter, obviously on Loose Women, and they say, an interesting, she's definitely opinionated. Whether it's, most of the time I end up turning TV off, I have to say, with her. Margaret Thatcher. Again, everyone will have their own opinions of Margaret Thatcher. It's, and Alan Titchmarsh. Everyone will have their opinions of Alan Titchmarsh as well. And this is the thing with this book. It's very much people's opinions about things, and it's fascinating. I love reading this sort of thing because, as I say, you can agree or disagree, and it gives you you think, that's interesting. See, Helen Willits, I must admit, she's the weather. Yes, Fish Ketley. Oh, don't tell me about weather. I must admit, I give up with the weather forecast on BBC. So does it ever match anything reality? Next day it always seems to be different from me anyway. I mean, maybe where I live, it's a localised area, so it's obviously never matches it. But Harold Wilson, remember Harold Wilson? That was obviously the first Prime Minister that I ever knew, and he was always fascinating. I must admit, I didn't, but it's just a great ponderer, forever theorising, thinking, etc. He always, of course, he had his pipe, the famous pipe. And also just talking about more, not particularly about Harold Wilson particularly, but special advisors. So that's quite interesting, sort of. And then he's got a bubbling under, which I love as well. And everyone, I'm certain, will have their opinions about who should go in this list. There's certain ones that I would put, people like Doctor Who and things, whatever, certain characters that ruined that. But other people will disagree and say the opposite, I'm certain. So, poor old Paul McCartney. I love Paul McCartney. So Paul McCartney, pin-up pensioner for the generation. What? Never accepted its adult burden. Very true, I think. Stop dyeing your hair, it says. I still think he produced so much great music. And I've been watching the Beatles documentary and I've thoroughly enjoyed that. Appreciation of his brilliant. I love it. So anyway. But this is a great book. I really, really recommend this, even though I must admit, don't listen to any of my opinions of what's known, because everyone's got different opinions about these people. They're obviously who they are, and they're up there, and it's the world is for better or for worse because of them. And obviously, and I'm certain that other people would have done equally just as bad decisions or equally good decisions. No one knows, because of course you can't test anything. No one knows that X, Y, Z, you do this, and a couple of years later suddenly you find the consequences of your action. You think all these things through, but you don't. No one knows, and the things play out for the next 50, 60, 70, 100 years, like Beeching. That's one person that really, I use the train a lot. That did annoy me, all the closures, total crazy destruction there. But again, I'm certain other people will have opinion the opposite and say it was a brilliant thing for the country. So I'm not going to switch away. But I really recommend this book. I loved it, and I must look up some more books, because he's actually a really good writer. And I quite found him quite funny, and he's in the papers. I know he writes, but I've never actually read any of his letters or articles. So, but Quentin Letts, 50 people, actually 55. I would definitely recommend this.